Shamar, you only had one job. One job!
Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black. Get your copy today at your favorite online bookseller.
A couple of days ago, YouTuber Blak TV asked a critical question: can we have an honest conversation about passport bros? Now, your passport bros are these black males who believe that black women's behavior is so ratchet and out of control that they can't have relationships with them here in America, and that they have to go out here and take a U.S. passport and travel overseas in order to pursue a relationship with who they believe to be a healthy and more functional foreign woman from one of these countries overseas. And it's hard to have an honest conversation with these passport bros regarding their reasons for leaving the country, because many of these men get so emotional and their behavior becomes so erratic that any conversation eventually turns into an argument, and some of these men, in extreme cases, escalate their behavior to stalking and harassment online. Now, back in 2019, I made a video hoping to refute the passport narrative after seeing a Dr. Jonathan Farley get scammed out of $50,000 by a mail order bride, and seeing Bakari Henderson winding up getting murdered by a mob of Serbians when he was inside of a bar and decided to just take a selfie with a white woman. And the reaction I received from the so-called passport bros was extremely appalling, and many of these individuals got so enraged that they were writing all sorts of hostile comments in the comment section of those videos, and others were so angry that they decided to stop supporting my Patreon, and I lost 50% of my patrons after I made the first passport video. And what's even worse was, as I was getting sadly into a back and forth with these individuals, their behavior was escalating to the point where even when I would put private videos on the website Free Speech Avenger, many of these individuals would go out here and drop all sorts of hostile comments, and they got so hostile to the point where I had to literally take videos down off of Free Speech Avenger and YouTube, because the behavior of these black males was so out of control that, as I saw it, it was making the race look bad, because I know that people all over the world were watching black men on social media, and the behavior that these black men were participating in was so out of control that I could not keep that content up on social media, because it would just make the race look bad when you see black men going out here and acting like they had no sort of common sense, and reflecting badly on the race to the point where you have black males going out here and cyber stalking a man all over his opinions regarding the entire passport narrative. Now, I tried to go out here and have a discussion on Obsidian Radio regarding the entire passport narrative, and sadly that whole situation deteriorated so badly that I just wound up just being, again, appalled by the hostility I received, because as we were trying to have this so-called debate, these individuals were getting into their feelings to the point where it was going into ad hominem attacks, and it just became a point where you just could not even have a discussion with these individuals. And again, you just can't, you want to have an honest conversation with these passport bros, but you cannot go out here and have that conversation, because many of these males are so dysfunctional that their behavior just gets so out of control that you basically fear for your life. And at a point in 2019, I was starting to have anxiety issues as related to going online due to the cyber stalking I was getting from some of these passport bros. And it got so crazy to the point where I had to unfriend multiple individuals on Facebook. I had to block multiple people on Twitter. And I had to go out here and scrub many of those videos from, again, YouTube and Free Speech Avenger, because many of these individuals, they do not know how to have a conversation because they get so caught up in their feelings that they cannot see how badly they are making the entire collective of black men look by their just erratic and out of control behavior. Now, this behavior is quite troubling when you see it, and I got a whole hit by it back in 2019, and it's this behavior that makes it where you don't want to even talk about the subject, and that's why I basically wound up shaking the dust off my feet as a testimony as related to the whole passport bros, because many of these individuals, they scare me with their behavior, because anybody who would go out here and cyber stalk another black man over an opinion regarding passports, I don't really believe that's a man who is ready for a relationship with another woman of any race. And the reason why I don't believe they're ready for a relationship, because if a woman goes out here and disagrees with that man, and he shows the same sort of hostility that was shown to me when I presented my opinions on passports, what's going to happen is that man is going to show that he is going to go out here and just abuse a woman. And that's really the scary part about these males' behavior. And many of these males, as Jason Blak has pointed out in his own live stream regarding the passport bros, show how their behavior is dysfunctional, because when Jason Blak had some of these passport bros on his live stream and was just going hard on these brothers, what was happening is many of these passport bros were showing how many of them really were not, again, ready for any sort of relationship. Many of them were showing how in their statements they were just completely dysfunctional and not really ready for any sort of relationship with a woman, and needed to go out here and do some work on themselves as a man. Because from my own observations, it's looking to me like some of these passport bros, while they sit there and complain about black women, they don't want to take a look at themselves and see where there's something wrong with them. Now, the late David Carroll, in many of his classic masterpieces, used to say that black folks love white people. Oh, yes, they do. And I believe that is the core foundation to the dysfunction in many of the passport bros and their female counterparts, the swirlers and the hashtag divestors. Many of these individuals have serious issues as related to their codependent relationship with white racists and white supremacists, and they deify and worship those who are white and non-black, and they put those individuals on a pedestal. And because they put those individuals on a pedestal, this is how they create the foundation for their narrative. This foreign woman is better than a black woman. And while many of them go out here and believe this narrative, they really don't want to take a look at where the foundation of that narrative comes. And that foundation of that narrative comes from their deification and worship of whites and non-blacks. And because they want to get a relationship with these individuals, these spellbound black males and black females believe they need to go outside of their race to go out here and have a healthy relationship. Unfortunately, the foundation for their dysfunction starts with them. And it doesn't matter whether this person goes overseas to get a relationship with a foreign woman or stays here in America. The problem with many of the passport bros, just like the swirlers and the divestors, starts with them. And I go back to the late David Carroll, who made the point about Blackistan coming from the black woman, and that whole foundation is what leads to the dysfunction that creates the passport bro, who learned all of his dysfunction from his single mother, who taught him self-hatred while he was in that home, and taught him that self-hatred that was compounded by not only the dysfunction he learned in that home, but also the trauma he experienced by being abused by that single mother, who in many cases was hostile and domineering towards him because she's angry at his father and takes it out on him, and also the anger and hostility he has received from these black women in the community, such as teachers, such as neighbors, all suffering from trauma that they've had from bad relationships, and they project that anger out on their son, and that anger that they project on their son leads to their son winding up not having any sort of love for black women. And on the flip side, with the swirler, she winds up being abused by her mother and by being abused by men in the home, such as the uncle, the boyfriend, and other men. This is what leads to the foundation for these narratives, because both the black male and the black female have suffered trauma in their childhood, and as they enter adolescence, they wind up suffering more trauma. Many of these black males who are passport bros, they suffer trauma because they have been rejected by many of the black women in their community who decided to get with Pookie and Ray Ray or get with the neighborhood dope man, and because they couldn't get the girl of their dreams and they're still suffering from trauma from their mommy issues, many of these males are angry at black women the same way your swirlers and divestors are angry about the black man not being able to go out here and be the leader that was supposed to take care of her. And because she believes that the black man wasn't able to take care of her, what she does is say black men ain't no good. And the same thing with the passport bro. He says, oh, your black woman isn't good. And that's why he's sitting there looking at your white and non-black women through a rose-colored lens. And as this spellbound individual looks at these white and non-black women across the globe in a rose-colored reality, he's believing this woman is better, not understanding how the institution of white supremacy is manipulating both the black man and the black woman to see each other as enemies. And the whole goal of this is to, again, divide the black man from the black woman so that we can go out here and make it where your black man and black woman do not go out here and build black families. And that's where I have an issue again with the passport bros. They're sitting there pushing a very dangerous anti-black narrative, and they don't see how this narrative is anti-black because they are so caught up in their feelings about black women that they can't see how this is destructive to the race. Because the reason why your white supremacists are allowing the passport narrative to go mainstream is because they know they're going to make a lot of money off of dysfunctional black males and black females by having them both go get their passport, having them both go overseas. And as they have this spellbound mindset, they're sitting there believing that these other whites and non-blacks are better, but never critically think about where all of where these white supremacy comes from. Who taught the white man how to be racist? Who taught the Asian man how to be racist? Who taught the Hispanic man how to be racist? I mean, when you answer that question, you see that the whole passport narrative falls completely apart because, as the late David Carroll has stated, your woman is the first teacher of culture, and the culture that many of these white and non black women are taught is anti black racism from minute one. And many of these black males, because they just are just not understanding the subtle politics of white supremacy, they don't understand how you're just, when you call yourself going to get one of these women, you're going from the frying pan into the fire. Because while this woman appears to be kinder on the surface, she still has the same anti black mindset, and many of these guys never figure that out until that dark day when they are called an N-word. And that's something many of these passport bros don't want to talk about. You don't want to talk about that because that requires critical thinking. But many of these passport bros, they are so caught up in their feelings of anger at black women that you cannot have any sort of conversation about critical thinking talking points, because these individuals, they are so caught up in their anger at their black mother. They're so caught up in their anger about that girl that they liked in junior high school and high school who hurt them back in the day. And they're so caught up in their feelings about these black women and their experiences with black women that they just don't, you cannot sit down and have an honest conversation with them, because they're not being honest with themselves. And because they're not being honest with themselves, you cannot go out here and have an honest conversation with them, because many of these men, they are just simmering and boiling in anger about all of the hurt from mama, all of the hurt from auntie, all of the hurt from the teacher in school, all of the hurt because, again, black boys are targeted by people and seen as an enemy. And many of these men are so caught up in their feelings, all they're thinking about is so-called happiness, because they don't understand that life is hard, life is not fair, and they're thinking that, oh, I can go out overseas and have some sort of happiness, not understanding that all you're doing is going to a so-called oasis, which is nothing more than a mirage, because white supremacy is global. And many of those people who are nice to you are only nice because they want to get the black dollar, because the black dollar has higher value than their own currency. And what they want to do is get black dollars, because black dollars are the easiest dollars to get, because black men are part of the $3.3 trillion in spending. And because they have $3.3 trillion in cash and credit, many of these people overseas, they see a black man as an easy way to a better life, because they know that they are spellbound. They know that many of these men want to fit into the black box that's acceptable to white people. They know that they want white acceptance. They know that all they have to do is pay them some attention, and it's easy to go out here and get their money. And it's easy to go out here and take advantage of them, because, again, many of these men never had fathers to sit down and teach them male life skills, never had men to teach them male survival skills, never had men to teach them social skills, never had men to go out here and teach them how to navigate the world as a man. And that's why they see your white and foreign woman from a rose-colored lens, because they don't see who these women really are. And again, thinking that this woman is better. But the problem is, again, lying with this man. And the problem lies with this man because if you are raised in dysfunction, what you're going to do is attract predators to you. And you're attracting predators because you have not learned the proper social skills, and you don't have the masculine energy to go out here and attract positive people to you. And that's something the passport bro doesn't understand. He's sitting there thinking, if I go to another location, I'm going to get with a different woman. No, if you go to a different location, you're going to get the exact same woman, but in a different color. And I talk about this also with black women in my book, why 70% of black women are single. You have black women who also believe the same thing, that if they go out here and pursue a relationship through swirling and they divest from the black community, they will find a better man, but you're not going to find anything in anybody else's community but their leftovers and their cast-offs, and they're leftovers and cast-offs for a reason. They're leftovers and cast-offs because many of these people have serious character issues that make them unfit for a relationship, and that's why many of those white and foreign men and women do not want to choose to marry those individuals. But your passport bro cannot think critically about this, and he's just thinking, oh, I'm going to get with one of these so-called fly foreign women who are supposedly more attractive than black women. And what they don't understand is that there's a reason why that foreign man in that country did not choose to marry that woman. And there's a reason why that white man who traveled there before you also didn't choose to pick up that woman. And again, the reasons are there, but because your passport bro is completely spellbound and caught up in trying to fit himself into the black box that's acceptable to whites and looking for the favor and approval of whites and non-blacks, he thinks that this is going to be better. But how is it going to be better if it's the same? If you have this, you haven't changed, because that's something your black passport bro and your swirler and your divester really have not thought about critically. They haven't thought, hey, I'm like is attracting like, and if I'm dysfunctional, guess what I'm going to attract? I'm going to attract more dysfunction to me. And this is the other part of the honest conversation your passport bro doesn't want to talk about. He doesn't want to talk about that the reason why he's having problems with relationships is because he refuses to go out here and put the work in himself. And because he doesn't want to put the work in himself, what he does is he goes out here and looks to find an easy solution, like going overseas. But going overseas is just him spending thousands of dollars to go out here and get with the exact same woman in a different color. And he doesn't see this as insanity. No, he sees this as perfectly fine until a couple of years later, when either he's called an N-word by the same woman, or what happens to him is he gets played by one of these women, and he just sits there and thinks, oh, it's nothing wrong. But again, this is the spellbound mind of your passport bro. And again, you can't have an honest conversation with him because he, like the swirler and the divester, is completely dishonest. And they are dishonest because they want, again, they don't want a relationship with a person. What they want is acceptance and approval from somebody white or non-black. And what they want is to be loved by a white or a non-black person who they have gone out here and deified and worshiped because they have been brought fully into white supremacy, and they believe that this person is better than them. Because when you hear the statement, oh, those women are better, that's a white supremacist talking point. And that's what happens when you have an individual who is brainwashed. They believe somebody is better than them. And that's a dangerous frame of thinking. And what's really scary about this whole frame of thinking is it's going mainstream. You have many of these passport bros going out here being mainstream, not understanding the subtle politics transpiring around them. And because they don't understand the subtle politics transpiring around them, they don't understand how your white supremacy is basically using them as useful idiots to push an anti-black agenda in black communities, because their goal with this agenda is to further drive a wedge between the black man and the black woman, because the white supremacists never wanted to see black families come together. It never wanted to see black families go out here and be together. No, it didn't want to see a black man and a black woman come together, because the greatest, most dangerous thing to white supremacy is a black family with a black mother and a black father. That's the thing that your white supremacists don't like seeing, and they love seeing narratives like the passport narrative gain steam, because that ensures that they will have white hegemony eventually in the world, because as self-hating blacks go out here and erase themselves in order to get back at what they believe to be a no-good black man and a no-good black woman, they don't see how they're hurting themselves, because they're in their feelings about each other, and they can't see how they are being made to fire ammunition at each other in a gender war where both sides are losing to your white supremacy. And you can't have that conversation, honestly, with these individuals, because they don't want to work through their pain. They don't want to put in that work. They don't want to deal with their feelings. And again, because many black males, like the late David Carroll has said, don't know how to navigate through their emotions, you have to, whenever you talk about certain subjects like passports, you see these black males basically exploding in this rage. And it's really troubling, because when you see them explode in this rage, it's worse than the black female who raised them, because you'll see the black female, as related to swirling and divesting, they will just go out here and present their opinions, and people will pick it up and lose it and put it down logically. They can go out here and argue their talking points without getting personal and emotional. But with the passports, you have a black male who, whenever you go out here and present the subject, he goes out here and explodes in rage, and he gets so emotional that you just are taken aback by his emotions, to the point where you cannot even want to continue engaging in the conversation, because in some cases you fear for your life. And as I've experienced, these guys escalate their behavior to cyber stalking and harassment, to the point where you just are, again, afraid for your life, because you don't know what this individual is going to do. And that is the whole scary part about these passport bros. And it's one of those things that when I took a critical assessment of them, I had to say, if you'll go to the point where you'll stalk and harass a black man over his opinion regarding passports, then maybe this guy ain't ready for a relationship. Because if he'll stalk and harass a man online, heaven help the woman who gets involved with him and disagrees with this man, because this man, if he's going to go to this extreme with a stranger online, then he would go out here and possibly participate in domestic violence against a woman that he's involved with, and he could possibly wind up committing any sort of series of felonies. That is the scary thing I hate to say about these passport bros. I mean, all that does is breathe brand new life into the stereotype of the black brute. But when I look at a lot of these guys, they talk about having the freedom of choice, but they're not ready to take on the responsibility of a relationship. And again, it's just scary to deal with these kind of guys, and that's why you can't have a conversation with these individuals, because a conversation with these individuals puts you in jeopardy. I mean, I remember one of my viewers, they sent me a Cash App and asked me to talk about the difference between your passport bros and other guys. And these passport bros, basically, just on being a small part of a conversation, started exploding in rage, and just made it where I had to, again, shake the dust off my feet as a testimony to the whole subject. Because these individuals, you can't have a conversation with them, because they're just dysfunctional. And again, when you're dealing with a dysfunctional individual, you can't have an honest conversation, because they're not honest with themselves. And since they're not honest with themselves, they will go out here and look to go out here and tell lies to themselves that, oh, these women are better, I'm being treated better, not understanding people pay attention to you, and they pay attention to you because they see you as a come up and a come out of poverty. And the whole thing with this whole passport narrative that, like I talked about in the first 2019 video, is many of these men basically tell on themselves about their reasons for going overseas because they say the black woman is ratchet and out of control. But I don't see many, like Ringo and many others have pointed out, you don't see many of these men married at the end of the day. If the women are so-called better overseas, then you would think that they would go out here and bring one back as a wife. But we see with the passport bros and the passport women, because there are passport black women, all of them are single at the end of the day. And that basically, proves the dysfunction of both the black man and the black woman. There is so much dysfunction, but neither side wants to acknowledge their dysfunction or the white supremacist foundation of that dysfunction. So you can't have an honest conversation because many black men and black women, they just get so angry and so heated at each other that when you try to talk about the subject, these people explode in so much rage that you can't talk to them because, again, you fear for your life, you fear for your safety. And while these guys talk about freedom, they wind up oppressing others. And again, they talk about, oh, it's my freedom to go wherever I want. And sadly, you have to let them go wherever they want. And you have to let them learn the hard way because there's no way you can go out here and try to teach them about the dangers that led to Bakari Henderson sadly losing his life. Because many of these individuals, when you try to talk about those dangers, like Jason Blak did in his live stream where he talked about the kidnappings, where he talked about people getting robbed, where he talked about all of these things, and Peso Man has also talked about it. These individuals, again, they get in their feelings and they start violating boundaries and they start looking to stalk and harass people. And that's what I experienced in 2019 that made me where I never wanted to ever talk about passports again, because many of these passport individuals, they're just, as I see it, not people who I would want to ever have a relationship with, because if you're this twisted to the point where you want to stalk and harass people over an opinion, then I have to wonder if you are ready for any relationship with anyone, because if you'll do this online, then I wonder what you'll do in real life, because you're capable of doing anything with any sort of depravity. And again, these individuals are scary to me, and that's why you cannot have a conversation with passport bros, because as they have passport derangement syndrome, there's no way you can go out here and talk to these individuals, because there's no talking to someone who cannot follow logic and reason. There's no talking to them, because the only thing that they're doing is feeling, and when you feel, all you hear are buzzwords. You don't hear the subject, you don't hear the talking points. All you do is feel, and the only thing you can do with a person who is feeling is let them feel the pain of failing and let them feel the pain of understanding that when you go out here and want to feel, you will wind up feeling something bad when you wind up getting played by one of these predators. Now, this video is going to be one that I'm only going to put up for the members, and if you want to support the channel, you can donate to the members only section. And if you want to pick up some of my other books in the men's issue series, like Stop Simping, The Misadventures of Captain Save-'em, and The Man Crisis and The Woman Crisis, you can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBook Store, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more members-only videos, you can donate to the members-only section and check out this exclusive content that is only available for members. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and Kindle, All About Marilyn. Learn all about the struggles of a faded former teen sitcom star in this absolutely fabulous 5-star screenplay. Get All About Marilyn in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com today.